So welcome. My name's Robert Holler. I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Water and Wastewater Association. I'm joining you today from the banks of the mighty St. Lawrence River, just south of Ottawa, on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe people, and I'm just upstream from the Mohawk Territory. The CWWA, your Canadian Water and Wastewater Association, is the national voice for the water utility sector in Canada. I see a lot of new faces. It's exciting. A lot of the names that I don't recognize, which is wonderful that we're able to reach out and meet new demand and make new contacts through webinars such as this. If you don't know the CWWA well, be sure to get to our website at www.cwwa.ca. And there you can sign up for the e-bulletin. Right up in the top corner from cwwa.ca, sign up for the e-bulletin, and you keep track of what's going on at the federal level, everything that's happening across the country, a lot of great clippings, and we invite you to stay involved there. One of the other things about this webinar is that we did get approval for CEUs. So if you are collecting CEUs, we do have a process by which you've got approval through the EOCP, our partners in British Columbia, the Environmental Operators Certification Program, EOCP. So we'll give all the details of that to you later. We'll email out to everybody with a connection where you can get a copy of the video, where you can watch this on YouTube. Later this week, we'll have it all edited and ready. You'll be able to watch part 1 and part 2 and sign up for your CEUs. Also, CWWA, as the national association, we run 2 big events. Every June, May, June, we run the Window on Ottawa, which is a great chance to find out what's going on at the federal level. We have very senior federal policymakers tell us not what they've been doing, but what they're on, what project they're on right now, and what their forecast is as to what they'll be working on in the coming years. So you know ahead of time, and you can ask questions and get in direct contact with some of Canada's leading policymakers at the federal level. Then, of course, we have our national conference every year. It's going to be live this year in Halifax, Nova Scotia, November 6 to 9. I hope you can come out and join us for a live networking person event. Then, of course, for our international audience, Canada is hosting the IWA World Water Congress in 2024. We're going to have a big pavilion in Copenhagen this year, but in 2024, August of 2024, we will host the World here in Canada, and I welcome you to that. So the way we work at CWWA is all the work's done by amazing volunteers and our volunteer committees. One of the most active committees. I'm going to remind everyone to keep their microphones muted and their cameras off for the duration of this. As you're popping on, just keep your cameras and microphones muted. This is just a Teams meeting, so if you accidentally turn it on, we'll hear you. I encourage you to use the chat area. Go to the chat, say hello right now, but if you have any questions, put them there. The presenters will be able to see them and answer you directly, or then after presentations, we'll get to some of the bigger questions as well. So as I was saying, one of our active committees is the Drinking Water Quality Committee, led by Dr. Steve Craik. I appreciate Steve and his leadership on so many projects. We've got a lot of information up on our website that Steve and that committee were part of, including the information on lead and how to reopen buildings after COVID. Lots of great information on the website, and a lot of it comes from this committee that's always making comments on our behalf to the federal government. The subcommittee is led by Dr. Laith Faratian. Laith is on today. I'm going to introduce him in a second. And lastly, I want to thank Kara Parisienne, our manager of communications for CWWA, who's really the technical brain behind all this, puts the whole program together and all of our marketing. So thanks, Kara. So that said, I'm going to go to Laith. Laith and I have known each other for years. This guy's got a world of experience from research and academia to utility leadership to consulting firms. I met him as a volunteer, I say volunteer extraordinaire with the BCWWA, but he's gone on to join us and a tremendous water champion and friend. And with that, I introduce Dr. Leith Fratian.
Thanks, Rob. Good morning and welcome. Thanks for joining us. I'm Leith, and I'm speaking to you from Vancouver, on the traditional and unceded territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. If you've joined us for day 2, that's great. Day 1 was, I think, well attended, and if you missed it, we'll, as Rob said, the posting will be made shortly. If you've, why are we here? If you've pondered about how to prioritize keeping water safe, or even how to define safe water, then you've come to the right place. Yesterday I gave a couple of acknowledgements to notable Canadians who have promoted this subject. One of them, Duncan Ellison, the former CEO, executive director of the CWWA, and also Steve Rudy, who Professor Emeritus at University of Alberta, who, as we heard yesterday, was involved directly with the development of the Australian framework, which became very influential internationally. And he also served in the expert panel for the Walkerton Inquiry. And it was during a presentation many years ago that Steve advised or recommended all those, it was a group of graduate students, I think, all those interested in the drinking water field or active in it, to familiarize themselves with the contents of the Walkerton Inquiry report, at least part 2, which I did. And it was in that report, which devotes an entire chapter to the subject of quality management for drinking water, that I personally encountered this subject. So, yesterday we heard about the development of the Australian system with a conversation I had with Don Bursell. We heard about how to start, where to begin, which can be quite daunting, from Dan Deere. We heard about from Annette Davison on how a drinking water quality management system that specifically focuses on water quality could be incorporated into an existing enterprise risk management system. And we heard from Jim Graham from the New Zealand regulator on how they are evolving the use of quality management to return more towards what it was intended to do, which is a risk management tool rather than simply a check the box compliance measure. Then we heard a very interesting and detailed discussion about how the risk management approach is used for what is arguably the most important element of a multiple barrier approach, which is source protection. So today I'm privileged to introduce you to speakers who, again, have successfully distilled many years, decades of experience in a 15-minute presentation, which is a tall order to do. And the presentations today will include Corrina Summerill in Wales, who will be talking to us about the subject of her doctoral dissertation, which was organizational management for a supportive organizational culture to facilitate quality management. She's also the co-author of a chapter in an IWA book on the very same topic. We'll be hearing from María Gunnarsdóttir from Iceland, on another pioneer in this area, on not only the history of the Icelandic experience, but also the continuous improvement there. We'll be hearing also about a very unique arrangement called the Utah Water Quality Alliance from Eva Nieminski, who is retired but worked for the Utah regulator, and I think a setup that is that merits attention and I think emulation in other places where utilities can coordinate or can engage in mutual aid together for a common cause. We'll then hear from Robert Cheng and Tom Schippert, a presentation on the Partnership for Safe Water, which is an American-created optimization program that lays out very well-developed, very defined optimization goals that were developed by a large water sector-wide group specifically for water treatment, water distribution, and wastewater treatment. And then lastly, we'll hear from Ian Douglas from the City of Ottawa on the implementation of the Ontario 22-element drinking water quality management standard in Ottawa, and specifically how Ottawa has conducted extensive, site-specific due diligence, shall we say, in that far exceeds the provincial requirements, and justifiably so. And so Ian will talk to us a little bit about that and show us even how tangible measures of its success. So lastly, but not least, I want to acknowledge also the hard work of Kara Parisian, communications manager for the CWWA, who has done a tremendous job in editing and putting together all these pre-recorded presentations. Thank you very much, Kara. So the presentations are pre-recorded, but the presenters are with us, and they will be able to address your questions, particularly if they're brief, using the chat function. Otherwise, at the tail end of our sessions, we'll have a live Q&A, and the presenter cameras will be turned on, and we can have a brief discussion then. So thank you for joining us, and I hope that you get a lot out of day 2.
Hi, so just a quick introduction to myself. I'm Corrina Summerill. I've been working in the water industry for the past 18 years or so. I completed my PhD in Cranfield University in 2010. It was part funded by the International Water Association, and I looked into the effects of organisational culture on water safety plan implementation in a wide variety of utilities around the world. So I'm going to talk to you today about organisational culture and how we can use this to inform our water safety plan development. So first of all, what is organisational culture? Well, simply defined by Deal and Kennedy in 1995 as the way things get done around here. And because it's so ingrained, often it might not be immediately obvious to those working in a particular environment what it actually is. A lot of factors may influence the culture of a supplier. For example, its history, regulatory environment, its professional makeup, its ownership, whether you're private or public, management types, any previous water quality incidents that have occurred, its size, and governance models, just to name a few. So if you Googled organisational culture, you'll find many different models available, often based on the levels of flexibility and the internal or external focus of an organisation. Some examples would be clan cultures, hierarchical, bureaucratic, entrepreneurial, and competitive. And it should also be noted that in particularly large organisations, there may be very distinct subcultures within that organisation. For example, in some of the utilities I worked with during my research, at a top level, they were very supportive of preventative risk management approaches. But at an operational level, there was almost a subculture of firefighting, of almost enjoying things like bursts when they happened, because there was a level of camaraderie and excitement involved in solving the problem at hand. And when that incident was resolved, there was an element of immediate satisfaction, a celebration of success, and recognition for all the hard work that went into solving it, and also some added value benefits such as overtime payments. And this kind of thing shouldn't really be underestimated, and it's really not easy to replicate with preventative approaches. How do you effectively celebrate success when it's difficult to prove that something didn't happen because of the risk management plan you put in place? So why is it important to consider culture when implementing water safety plans? Well, we want to make water safety plans a long-lasting change, and we want to avoid tokenism. For example, doing it just the regulators told us to do it, so we need to do it. We need to make them work for our organisations. By giving some thought to culture in the first instance, we can tailor our approaches, identify and focus on areas that need to be worked on in order to increase the likelihood of successful implementation. And we are lucky that we can learn from a lot of other sectors when considering what makes for successful risk management. There's been a lot of research into the cultures of these types of organisations where they have a high level of risk maturity, and we can learn lessons from these when considering our own organisational cultures and how we might best implement preventative water safety plan approaches. So high reliability organisations are those types of organisations that have very few incidents despite their high risk operations. Some examples would be nuclear power stations, air traffic control, Navy submarines. And water utilities can learn a lot from these organisations, particularly when we think about the potential for what could go wrong from our operations, as demonstrated by some famous and significant water quality events of the past, such as Walkerton and Camelford in the UK. So research has shown that there's 5 key attributes of these types of organisation. One, they have a preoccupation with failure. So even minor failures are reported promptly, investigated and fixed. They have a reluctance to simplify their interpretations. So they've got a comprehensive understanding of their working environment and awareness of the complexity of the operating environment. They have a sensitivity to operations. So they continuously monitor safety and security barriers and influencing factors for the first signs that things are beginning to fail. They have a commitment to resilience, a capability to detect, contain and recover from their errors. And they have a deference to expertise. So authority automatically migrates to the person who can solve the problem, regardless of their hierarchical rank within the organisation. So if you are interested in HROs and risk management within water utilities, there are a number of research papers looking into working towards high reliability within the water sector. And I can point you in the direction of those papers if you are interested. Okay, so from a review of case studies from water safety plan implementation by other researchers and also my own research, I was able to distill some supportive cultural attributes which we felt supported water safety plan implementation. And these could be used as a starting point, along with those attributes of HROs, for you to start thinking about your cultures, to identify your strengths and weaknesses, and therefore perhaps tailor your water safety plan approach accordingly. So managerial commitment and organisational commitment I'll discuss in a little bit more detail after this. Leadership and advocacy. So leaders have the ability to change attitudes and motivate others. That's a really important aspect, having those effective leaders within your organisation. Accountability to the consumer. So those organisations that really felt accountable and wanted to do the right thing for their consumers. And an awareness of public health responsibility. May seem obvious to us because we are all here. But in some subcultures, particularly those lucky enough to have avoided significant public health issues in the past, there was almost sometimes a prioritisation of quantity over quality. A focus on maintaining supply was the main focus, despite water quality risk in some cases, or simply a lack of knowledge over what could go wrong in terms of public health. Avoiding silos. So water safety plans are intended to be a holistic approach from source to tap, and will probably involve many different departments and stakeholders, both internal and external. So having those effective internal and external communication channels really help. Learning and continual improvement cultures. So again, sort of link back to those high reliability organisations. Those that really understand past failures, learn from other organisations to inform their risk management and mitigation stages, were often more successful in their implementation. And having an open reporting culture, one of fair blame, where colleagues are not afraid to report near misses and failures, and really learn from those going forward. And organisations that were image and reputation conscious, so concerned with reputational risk and wanting to be seen as the best, really took on board new approaches and were innovative in their adoption. So managerial commitment then. It is an essential first step, and without it, water safety plans are likely to fail. Managers can demonstrate their commitment in numerous ways, such as formally endorsing policy, ensuring sufficient resources, promoting preventative approaches and the importance of public health protection, setting clear targets and providing training and education and succession planning to ensure that the knowledge within the organisation is captured effectively within their water safety plans. and supporting any necessary changes in work practice. So as I mentioned before, leadership and management can be two different things. Effective leaders can influence culture and have the power to effect culture change. And acceptance of a new practice such as water safety plans as the norm is strongly affected by the actions of these leaders. So Cotter in 1995 identified some key leadership errors that people might want to be conscious of and actively try to avoid. And when I was working on my research and discussing water safety plans with various colleagues within the organisation, we were reflecting on things that went wrong and what could have gone better. A lot of these could be aligned to these leadership errors, so it is a good checklist to have from the outset. So the leadership errors identified were not establishing a great enough sense of urgency, not creating powerful enough guiding coalition, lacking vision or under-communicating the vision, not removing obstacles, and not systematically planning for and creating short-term wins, and not anchoring these changes in corporate culture. So there's a couple of quotes there, just kind of, these are from my research to show how some of these really manifested themselves within those organisations. So, for example, utilities won't do it unless there's a regulatory driver. So there wasn't that sort of urgency there. We're not being told to do it yet, so we're not really taking it too seriously. Maybe it wasn't communicated well enough to them. I wasn't there. So again, that sort of leadership wasn't there. They weren't really actively involved in trying to promote it and communicate it to the organisation. We plain and simple ran out of time. So there they hadn't planned for and created those short-term wins. They hadn't sort of done a pilot water safety plan project and hadn't planned for it. And not anchoring those changes in corporate culture. I guess if I personally insisted that it had been done, it would have been. So they weren't really actively promoting that approach within their organisation. So in terms of organisational commitment, research tells us that when implementing new initiatives, long-term success is much greater when those involved want to be committed rather than feeling that they have no choice or that they ought to be. Many researchers believe that motivation is greater when it's provided through emotional factors rather than material things such as bonuses if the work is carried out well. However, whilst material benefits are not motivators in their own right, the absence of such things, for example, fair salary, bonuses, job security, can act as demotivators and make securing that emotional commitment much more difficult. So from discussions with utilities during my research, we noted some of the motivational factors that employees really valued when we were discussing how they were implementing water safety plans. So empowerment, involvement and ownership was top of the list. They were really involved and they owned those water safety plans. Provision of awareness and education regarding water safety plans, and that was highlighted as a really important factor in gaining that commitment. So making people really understand why we were doing it and what the benefits were. Providing recognition for good work, positive working environment, one where we celebrated success, had team support and flexibility. Wanting to avoid repetition of past incidents and providing good service to their communities. They wanted good water quality for their friends and family, so they were really brought into the water safety plan approach. And also wanting to work for sort of best and world-class organisations. A bit of healthy competition also helped with their peer organisations, and a feeling of being trusted and taking pride in their work. So in getting organisational commitment, awareness programmes are a good first step in gaining motivation, prioritising that with those directly involved and really sort of promoting the water safety plan approach, why we're doing them, what the costs and benefits are, how it's going to directly affect people's jobs, and encouraging people to think about hazard and risk, and providing follow-up training in risk management approaches. So in terms of improving, if you like, organisational culture, there's a number of steps we can take and things that we should be mindful of. Awareness and education, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is a really important first step. Developing and improving on that risk leadership, including things like water safety plans within mission statements. Acknowledging those internal cultures that may exist, as I mentioned before, and modifying working structures to support the process. Trying to identify and remove blockers, and also identify those building blocks. So there might be a lot of things that an organisation does which fits in with the water safety plan approach. So what are we already doing that can be determined quick wins, if you like. Identifying any external implementers, so any other peer organisations that we can learn from and work with, and regulatory bodies that may be providing guidance and support. It's also worth noting that whereas culture may influence the success of our water safety plan approaches, also the act of implementing water safety plans will also affect culture in the long term. So it is kind of a cyclical process. And a good starting point is to do a pilot water safety plan. You could pick a site or a part of the supply chain, preferably one where there will be some quick wins, and you can really kind of demonstrate the potential benefits of a water safety plan, and use that to communicate back to managers and the organisation as a whole. So in summary, attempts to shift behaviour towards preventative approaches must consider the basic assumptions of the organisation in the first instance. And without considering how organisational culture may aid or inhibit adoption, long-term implementation may fail. So giving some thought to the culture of the organisation at the outset will enable approaches to be tailored accordingly to maximum benefit and avoidance of tokenism. It's worth noting there is no real right or wrong culture, but just giving it some thought can maybe help avoid some of those failures which I mentioned before, and really sort of plan for those quick wins in the first instance. So it has been a real whistle-stop tour. I've realised that 15 minutes is not actually very long to talk. I've noted a few key references here, but if anybody is interested in some further reading, I'm happy to provide some links and some references to more detailed information. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentations.
This presentation is about water safety plan in Iceland and what experience we have gained by using it for 25 years. Some background information. Iceland is a large mountainous country with a small population. Only 370,000 people live here, and they live mostly by the coast or near the coast. Drinking water source is mostly groundwater, or 96% of the water used, and not treated unless using or there is an influence from surface water, often seasonal. Then there is filtration and UV. We do not use residual disinfection. There are around 830 regulated water supplies, including a large number of small supplies, and many of them are with seasonal use, tourist site, and summer house areas. Most large and medium-sized supplies are municipally run and owned, whereas the smaller ones are user-owned or co-op. Non-compliant incident, not so frequent, but still happened. Boil advisories and waterborne outbreaks are mostly in the small supplies. In 2020, December, there came a new European Drinking Water Directive, which we are to follow. There is a demand there on risk-based approach, and it should be implemented in all the chain of drinking water delivery from catchment to consumers. And at least, or a minimum, for all supplies serving more than 500 people or deliver more than 100 cubic meters a day on average. This directive ought to be implemented into national legislation in all the member states before January 2023, and with a time limit of 6 years to implement. There is an ongoing Nordic project where we are evaluating the status of this approach in the Nordic water sector and looking at the experience, barriers and solution to implement in the small supplies. The requirement in the new directive is already in legislation in all the 8 Nordic countries, but when information is not readily available on how it's going. History in Iceland at glance of use of water safety plan. In 1995, there came a new Food Act where drinking water was defined as food, demanding HACCP approach or similar to secure food safety. And this came as a surprise to the sector. They reacted by developing a template by using the model from HACCP. And in 1997, the first 3 supplies had it implemented, or there among was the capital Reykjavik. Then the sector developed a simpler template nicknamed Mini HACCP, intended for the smaller supplies. And that was introduced in 2005. By 2009, 31 supplies had implemented this, serving around 81% of the population of Iceland. And now there is an ongoing evaluation of the experience in Iceland of this approach. We did some research around 10 years ago on impact from water safety plan, and it showed that there was a significant benefit both on drinking water quality, public health, and also on awareness. On drinking water quality, non-compliance were nearly 4 times more likely in supplies without water safety plan. And supplies that do not have water safety plan are more than 2 times more likely to have HPC over 10 colony-forming units per milliliter. On public health, there was also impact. There was a significant reduction in incident of diarrhea in 5 out of 7 primary healthcare centers, and 40% less risk of clinical cases of diarrhea where water safety plan is in use. And there's also impact on organization culture. The implementation process is a learning process and mind changing for staff on awareness of water safety. That drinking water is food, it changed the mind of the people. There were some beginners problem and should have done when we look back. The template made by the water sector in the beginning was too complicated. We had no role model. WHO guidelines were not until much later published, and we used a HACCP model which is more adapted to the food industry than to water supply. So some years into the process, we made a simpler template, and that one has been widely used. The template should also have included, for example, regular management review, defining responsibility, etc. We also found out that buying a ready-made did not work well. Staff must be part of the implementing process, otherwise it's not working. It only ends as a decoration on the shelf. We had cooperation with the Institute of Adult Learning, and they made courses for operators, and these were held in the beginning, but we should have been more, have secured this more to continue, because they are not anymore. Now we are doing this evaluation of this quarter of a century experience. And we have already interviewed 6 surveillance authorities and 5 water supplies, which all are almost running more than one or several regulated water supplies. We look at status and benefits, barriers and solution, and I'm presenting the results from this work. The status of water supplies in Iceland and the history really can be seen here. We started in 1997 with around 40% of the population served with these supplies, securing water. And then this year in January, February, we have been counting them, and they are up to 57, and that is serving 91% of the population on a permanent basis. And there is still 12 water supplies serving more than 500 inhabitants are without water safety plan. So this is, we are quite far off, or in reality we were better off than I thought. And some benefits that are mentioned in the interviews, there are more security, and this is especially helpful when there is a high-risk water source. You would have more control measure on these. It's good to have a standard operational procedure in place, especially when something happens. And to know your system well and how to react is a bonus. And it's very helpful when planning some installment or some improvement. Then you have the high risk part of the system first in line. And information and transparency, everything is up on the table, they say. Quoting to my experience is that as soon as you use them, there are results. They do not have to rely on memory, as it is all documented, or it is just an advanced control over yourself and work practice, so I see no obstacle in implementing it. If we look at barriers, what is hindrance for implementing it? For the small supplies, mostly it appears to be complicated at the beginning, and a lot of paperwork, which maybe is because they lack training in this kind of work. And there is availability of guidelines could be improved, also when training is lacking. And there should be more forum for people working with water safety plan. And it's quite easy now when everything goes on a computer. You don't have to travel long distances for meetings. Follow-up has been lacking by the surveillance authority, and they say it's difficult to put pressure on use of water. You can't close for the water. So that can be difficult to put the pressure. Some have started to have it as a prerequisite to get a operational license. First it was some kind of should be in, but they didn't say no to issue an operational license, but now they have started to do that. So it is on the good pace. There is a size limit for use of water safety plan. If you have only 2 or 3 persons, maybe 1 or 2, as one put it, we can see it work with staff of 3. If less, it's not working. And now many of the pioneers in water safety planning and have that first implemented and were very enthusiastic and did it well, they have not retired. So there need to be a continuity with training, so it's passed on. The way forward and some steps ahead in the near future is to finish the water safety plan at least for the 12 supplies, serving more than 500, and then start to look how we can do it for the small supplies. That is important, as we have the non-compliance mostly in these supplies. Require in legislation, now that we have to have new regulation because of the new EU directive, use the opportunity and at the training of operator as a demand, and also have a pre-request for issuing operational license to have this approach, and demand regular audit by the surveillance authority, maybe once a year or something. And then establish training and forum for knowledge sharing. That is important. And make information more accessible on a website where you put all the information and learning material. And then increase computerization and to be able to use electronic devices in the field, for example, laptop, tablet, or mobile devices. And the conclusion and key to success, mentioned by some, involvement of staff and management that creates an ownership. So it's very important that staff is part of the implementing process, doing the risk assessment, even if you have somebody to help you, that the staff is with you as well. To have a continuous training to keep it active, that is very important, and we have to establish that. To define responsibility, who is to do what, who is responsible for which part of the job. Several interviewees emphasized the importance of cooperation between the supplies, and several of them said the most important thing for the small supplies is cooperation or merging into bigger ones. And then remember that water safety plan is a living document. It's not a final one when you make, and it's not changed after that. It has to adapt to new circumstances and be a living document. And as my final word, I would say that the implementation of water safety plan has been successful until now in Iceland, and we should keep on this road and implement and add also the small supplies. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for inviting me to this great international event. I would like to introduce you to a voluntary program that has proven very beneficial to water utilities in Utah, resulting in collaborative effort to improve operations, water quality, and relationships, even friendships. So, what is the Utah Water Quality Alliance? It's an alliance between most of the surface water treatment plants of all sizes and the state agencies in Utah. Even though it was established 28 years ago, it is still unique, as it's based on voluntary cooperation between the regulators and the regulated utilities. First, an alliance was formed among the largest utilities in Utah, each serving more than 100,000 customers. 6 utilities operating 12 surface water treatment plants. A little later, 3 regional groups were formed in 3 regions of Utah, composed of smaller-sized utilities, each operating a surface water treatment plant. The State Division of Drinking Water was the driving force, assisted by the Division of Water Quality, and offering technical assistance, coordination of efforts, as well as establishing programs for water quality monitoring, treatment plant optimization, training, special studies, and preparation for new regulations. The State Department of Health offered participation of the state lab, providing analytical services to the Alliance projects and at discounted rates. The membership of the Alliance consists of plant operators and utility managers, state engineers, lab analysts, as well as professors and students from 2 universities in Utah. The main purpose in establishing such collaboration was to assist water utilities in Utah in their treatment optimization efforts, as well as preparation for new regulations. A prerequisite to join the Alliance was that utilities had to be in full compliance with existing regulations. Thus, the Alliance is not an effort to bring the utilities to compliance, but rather it is an above and beyond program. This slide is the busiest but most important slide in my presentation. as it introduces the Alliance's mission and its major components. The mission of assuring continuous improvement of water quality coming from treatment plants and delivered to customers, thus enhancing public health protection, is being accomplished by monitoring source water and treated water quality beyond what is required by regulations, optimizing water treatment processes and enhancing treatment plant performance, sharing data and information among the utilities and assisting in problem solving using utility personnel and not paid consultants, education and training, participating in local and national drinking water research projects, evaluating new treatment and monitoring technologies on bench, pilot, and even full scale, preparing for compliance with new regulations, and also providing input to newly developed federal and state regulations. Each of the groups, the largest plants, the smaller plants in 3 regions, work independently and meet on a regular basis. Meetings are rotating. They're held at treatment plants and are concluded by a walkthrough of a plant if there are new members not familiar with the plant or if there is any construction or expansion of the plant. Members provide updates of their activities, projects, challenges, problems. The group engages in discussing common issues or assists in solving a problem. In addition, subgroups formed to work on a dedicated project present their updates. Special projects may concentrate on optimization of plant performance, additional monitoring at increased frequency, additional sites, or unregulated contaminants in sources, plant effluent, and throughout the distribution systems. In addition, the group may decide on developing a research project and then they publish or present the results. AWWA voluntary management standards, also called the G-Series standards, are being used by the Alliance in evaluation of treatment, watershed protection, distribution system management, and overall management. These standards are not enforceable and, as I said, voluntary and designed to the point of above and beyond regulations. The ones that are used the most, along with the guidebooks developed to help applying them, are the ones helping in a multi-barrier approach to assuring drinking water quality. The G100 focusing on treatment, the G200 dedicated to distribution systems, the G300 developed around watershed protection, and the G400 optimizing overall management. AWWA has produced 9 standards for drinking water utilities, 3 for wastewater utilities, and 2 for reuse. Drinking water standards range from operations to conservation to emergency preparedness to security to customer relations. The Water Quality Alliance is also dedicated to ongoing, continuing training for its operators. All of the Alliance plant's operators are certified, and by attending the Alliance meetings and special presentations, they collect continuing education units approved by the state. For the last 23 years, annual educational events are organized, called annual retreats. They last all day and are sponsored by major engineering consulting firms. Each year, sponsoring consultants work on preparing presentations on topics selected by the Alliance members, and these topics are presented by the most experienced, respected, and well-known speakers. The annual retreats are attended by members from all Alliance regions and also serve as social events where the attendees from different regions and treatment plants could talk to each other and talk to the presenters. Engineers from the Utah Division of Drinking Water and Division of Water Quality are also invited, along with lab personnel and professors and their students from 2 local universities. The Utah Water Quality Alliance is reaching out to their customers, fighting the common perception that no news is good news, and that the only time that people hear about drinking water is when there is a problem or accident. Water that meets all federal and local regulations is still commonly perceived as not good enough, and people often choose to drink bottled water, believing that tap water contains some admissible levels of contaminants. Lack of positive communication and proactive outreach may lead to misinterpretation and confusion when people read about drinking water quality. So, I described the major pieces of Alliance activities, and you may wonder, If all this is voluntary, how does it work and succeed? First, the commitment to this above and beyond comes from the top of utilities and the state, but the real action comes from the operators with their hands in the water. There is a lot of technical support and historical knowledge coming from all kinds of disciplines: managers, operators, scientists, engineers, chemists, and biologists. The Utah Division of Drinking Water created my position as free of all of the regulations, inspections, and compliance, focusing my time on technical assistance, special studies, and coordination of the Alliance efforts. Moreover, as unusual it is in the US, individuals from different plants are sharing information, data, results of analysis, and thus learn from each other. And to top it off, the Alliance members are invited to participate in adoption of newly developed regulations and preparation for new regulations. They are considered by the state to be valuable, objective, and constructive partners. As a result of 20 years of Alliance activities, all surface water treatment plants in Utah meet current regulations. Members developed respect, trust, and friendships. Sharing of data, information, and expertise is a tremendous asset. Communication with the regulatory agency created mutual trust and respect. New regulations reflect the challenges of Western water supplies. Customers, hearing about the proactive efforts of their utilities, trust the quality of their drinking water. Several projects conducted by the Alliance members include optimization of treatment effectiveness in contaminant removal, self-assessment and peer review of plant performance, quality control strategies for suppliers of treatment chemicals, evaluation of emerging technologies, monitoring tools and chemical supplies, and pilot studies results that are shared. And there is more. The Alliance is engaged in monitoring for emerging contaminants, development of new analytical methods, participation in national research projects, involvement in professional organizations, publications in professional journals and presentations at conferences, training for staff and customer agencies, and offers internships for students. All of the largest treatment plants in Utah fulfilled requirements of the national program Partnership for Safe Water as soon as the program was initialized. The Utah Valley plant, operated by Central Utah Water Conservancy District, one of the members of the Utah Water Quality Alliance, was the second in the country to receive Phase 4 Excellent Award. Lots of benefits could be expected of such team effort, and they could be accomplished elsewhere. Consistency in quality of water supply brings public confidence. Resource and expertise sharing brings savings and promotes proactiveness, while input into regulatory decision allows to create waivers on regulations that are not addressing local issues. Participating in drinking water research and publications is resulting in national recognition of Utah utilities. Evaluation of new treatment and monitoring technologies result in more feasible investment and cost savings. Utilities benefit from their optimization efforts and enhancement of treatment plant performance by savings in chemical costs. The State Division of Drinking Water and Division of Water Quality benefit by having to spend less effort on compliance monitoring. Collaboration with utility personnel on adaptation of new regulations result in implementable regulations. The customers, the public, benefit from the vigilance in monitoring of source water and treated water quality by heightened security of their water supply. And finally, measurable improvements of drinking water quality delivered to the community result in enhanced protection of public health. Well, after as much as I could tell you about the Utah Water Quality Alliance, its concepts, goals, efforts, and benefits, I want to emphasize three things. First, the Utah Water Quality Alliance is based on teamwork and trust as the founding principles. Second, the formation of Utah Water Quality Alliance resulted in continuing water quality improvement program adopted by the participants. And third, this effort could serve as a model for other water utilities. It works. Please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions. Here's my contact information And of course, I would like to address any questions that you may have now. Thank you for your time. Cheers.
Good morning. This is Robert Cheng with the Coachella Valley Water District, and my co-author on this presentation is Tom Schippert with the AWWA Partnership Programs based out of Denver. We appreciate the symposium organizers for getting us on the agenda to talk to you a little bit about the partnership programs. And we've entitled this 25 years plus years of providing continuous improvement in public health protection framework. So in 1993, crypto was not used in the same context as we understand it today, and certainly was not a good word in Milwaukee. I was actually at the beginning stages of my career in water treatment, and I was a young staff engineer working for Metropolitan Water District of Southern California in support of the original surface water treatment rule. And in April or so timeframe, we saw these news flashes, coming out of Milwaukee talking about crypto cases. And you'll just see a few here. And as a utility manager, you never want to see this. Your utility kind of mentioned in this kind of context. So out of that, the Partnership for Safe Water was founded in 1995 through a collaborative relationship between these 6 key water utility organizations. I think in addition to the American Water Works Association, we also have the Association of Metropolitan Water Agencies, which represent some of the very largest utilities in the United States. Not NAWC, which is the private water companies, the Association of Drinking Water Administrators, the Water Research Foundation, and EPA. The program has been around for 27 years now, and the partnership programs has been successful because it was started by utilities and has always continued this mantra that is built for utilities. Certainly, one water concept is not new, and within AWWA, there's been a lot of desires to kind of put this money where its mouth is. So we think that the partnership programs actually help to optimize the entire water cycle. You'll see, starting up from the 12 o'clock position or so, that if we're talking about for drinking water, we've got programs for treatment optimization, and then that treated water goes into the distribution system, and we also have an optimization program for that. And then the water gets used and then gets treated as wastewater, and so the wastewater treatment component is the newest offering that we have. And we show the integrated programs and banners here on the right hand side. And so I think we've actually accomplished a lot in 27 years, but we're not stopping to take a break or rest. Our future programs and focus areas include groundwater treatment. There's certainly a big need for small system optimization, and also how to get the proper funding to them. And then lastly, on source water optimization and management. Those are our focal points, I think, for the upcoming years. Okay, so the partnership goals has always been one that has the public health protection at the first and foremost goal. But one of the ways that we do this is by helping plants and systems to improve the water quality, to achieve this. There's 7 sub-bullets here on how we kind of achieve that, and I'll just cover this real quickly. At the top of the list is obviously public health protection, but we can also recognize that the operational efficiency is an important item, because again, I think all utilities are living under budgetary constraints. So we want to be mindful of reducing operational costs. I think engaging staff in the effort and having ownership of the facilities is a huge part of the equation, especially with the employee turnovers. So I think the self-assessment process and the guidance that's provided enables the staff to fully understand the strength and weaknesses of their facilities in preparation to meet future regulations. I think another huge element of this program is the hundreds of years of experience that's contained within the volunteer subject matter expert assistance. And this level of professional network in providing the utility staff is really unmatched in my experiences, in the water industry. Consistent operations is a key to producing good water quality. And within the partnership framework, there's a huge emphasis on avoiding complacency and also, offering proactive measures, for staff awareness and resiliency to kind of combat, the complacency issue. We're a very data-driven program, and the actions are actually based on long-term trends and data insights. Again, kind of aligned with this data emphasis, we look at performance goals and how, the utilities actually meet, these numerical targets that are well beyond what the regulatory standards are, which in turn provides additional public health protection. I think, a fun point here is the awards recognition process, which we celebrate, the success and the continued successes of these facilities in providing public health. And, although this is not the key element for why utilities join, we think that, celebrating successes is really, really important. But I think in addition to peer recognition, the ability to kind of communicate the good work that the utilities do is really huge selling point, I think, to the community and also the public. So this program has been in existence for about 27 years now, and we've come a long ways since the beginning days. Currently, we have 267 utilities covering 502 plants. And even though most of these facilities are contained within the United States, there are some in Canada and also in other parts of the world. But I think the most impressive statistic here is that the partnership plants serve over 100 million customers within the US. So that really represents 1 in 3 customers that enjoy, the peace of mind that comes with the public health protection that the partnership offers. So in our quest for optimization, I think it's a fair question, as a new subscriber, okay, what is that the program staff do, and then what in turn the utility staff get? So I think in what it is that we do, we help plant and staff understand and address performance limitations, and basically trying to remove the obstacles, for the plant to achieve the highest level of performance that it possibly can. So these utilities, including our Canadian friends, would benefit from this phased approach, and also, recognition and networking. The groundwater and small systems emphasis actually matches the needs of the Canadian rural utilities really well. I think some of the other benefits in what it is that we do, we provide consistent data and capture. We provide guidance to analyze daily operations. And then I think the actions that are generated, from the self-assessment process lead to proactive measures. And lastly, I think this program, helps to introduce new technology and practices, again, in the mission of helping to improve plant and system operations. And so what are the tangible things that you get, for your subscription? Well, I think there's a dedicated website, with the most current program information and data processing. There are dedicated staff within Denver. I think Tom's one of them, who kind of manages that aspect. And then there's materials and checklists and reporting templates that are provided in your self-assessment journey towards excellence. We've got a pretty tremendously wide professional network that you can access. And then I think one of the biggest benefits is the assistance to help develop this culture of excellence, which we'll talk about a little bit more within your own organizations. And how do we do this? We provide complete and comprehensive self-assessment program guides, which are updated on a routine basis. And you can see, these volumes cover treatment and distribution for safe water, as well as for the treatment for clean water. These are comprehensive manuals, and I can say I personally have gone through, the processes for all 3 of these, and say that they are rigorous, but definitely time well spent. So with all this, I want to talk a little bit about numbers. So, these programs are good, but how do we actually show a demonstrable improvement in the quality of the water that we're serving to our customers? So going from left to right, the EPA maximum contaminant level for drinking water right now is set at 95th percentile at 0.3 NTU. The Partnership for Safe Water adopted these goals as far as back in 1995 when we were created. And back in those days, was a pretty big stretch, I think, for utilities to say, oh, well, we can't meet that. But evidence by the change in our 95th percent goal in 2015, which reduced that number down to 0.1. So this is a significant ratcheting down. And then the Partnership for Safe Water safe plants, for phase 4 plants, they're actually achieving 0.05, 95% of the time. So it's a very noteworthy accomplishment. So, the numbers are fine, but when you kind of take a look at a drop of water under microscope, for 0.3 NTU water, you'll see a sample that looks like this. You've got some materials in this water, which may or may not be pathogenic, but again, I think it'd be hard to argue that there's not material in this water. And in the water that is produced by partnership plants, which have achieved, phase 3 and phase 4 status, I would say, the water is remarkably has less materials in it. So I think the eyes will, be the judge. One of the big things here that we talked about was kind of changing the culture, and I do believe that this program changes one utility at a time. So you can see on the left-hand panel, here's a turbidity trend, and it's not important to see what the number is, but you can see that there's a reduction, a continued improvement in lowering of the turbidity standard at this particular facility, which happens to be a Utah Valley water treatment plant, and they are a phase 4 facility. And then so in addition to declining line, the number of spikes in the turbidities that observed have also been reduced, through time. And on the right-hand panel, this facility actually, puts up reminders of their participation in the partnership, including, turbidities and, the days of number of days, in exceedance, et cetera. So it's, this is a really good reminder, constant reminder, to the operators of the importance of the work and the importance of going beyond regulations. So the keys to success, why has this program been so durable? Why has it lasted 25 plus years, now in its 27th year? I think I talked about, the 6 different partnering organizations that came together to form this important effort. And I'll continue to reemphasize the point that without, the backing from all 6 agencies, the program would not be as successful as it is today. I think the program also asks the right questions in the self-assessment process. And, all these questions are driven to answer the simple question of, is your water safe? Can we actually say that, to our customers? So, going from the 12 o'clock position and going clockwise, we ask questions that are related to, okay, is the organization committed to this effort? Do they actually have the technical knowledge to produce the best quality water that they possibly can? Do they provide their operators sufficient training to produce this water? How are they addressing complacency? Are they providing enough financial resources, to get, this job done? And finally, is there management support, for these efforts? So, these are the list of questions. And so once the agency goes through this and they're successful, after, a series of peer review applications, we celebrate the success, through different events. And I will just highlight the fact that we do have an annual get together that was kind of put on pause for a couple of years, but I think at the upcoming conference, we will be recognizing and again celebrating the award achievements, for our participants. So before I kind of close out, want to encourage, for the agencies and utilities who have not considered being a part of this program to please, partner and definitely volunteer with us. And here's some of the ways to kind of get involved in benefits. It's not a comprehensive list, but I think it's, it's a good list. And so you can see, from the list here that, some of the actions are a little bit more active than others. You can certainly, subscribe and then attend, to partnership events and conferences and so on. But I think the maximum benefit that one would get out of this is by actually participating in our program meetings. I think to volunteer to serve on review committees and so on, and then to author and contribute to the AWWA and partnership publications. I think the benefits that one gets out of this is definitely a lot more and greater than what you put in. And I could say, as a volunteer who's been associated with this program for 25 years, I started, my association with this program back in 1997. It's a great career building effort. It helps advance, your career aspirations and build your network, which is, to me, is totally invaluable. And then at my stage of my career, I think, you start thinking about all the wealth of knowledge that you've accumulated, and you think about giving back to the industry and, to how best share your expertise. And I think this is a great and meaningful way of doing this, because I think the partnership simply creates opportunities, easy opportunities to do so. So in closing out, I want to again thank the audience for their attention and thank the conference organizers for including us on the program. Tom's and my contact information are listed here. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We love to talk partnership. We'd love to talk about optimization. And so any questions that you have, we're happy to answer. And then I would just also put a little plug in for those of you who are not joining us at ACE and has the ability to do so. At the annual conference, it's being held in San Antonio this year between June 12th to the 15th. I think this is the first time that we've met in person in over 2 years. So I think, very excited to see people. And finally, the partnership website is located at the very bottom here, and we would encourage you to visit it. And with that, I'll close. And again, thank you for the attention, and look forward to entertaining any questions that you might have.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Ian Douglas with the City of Ottawa, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about some of our experiences with risk management of drinking water, share some of our challenges, some of our successes, and also some gaps that I feel that still need to be addressed. I'll begin just by noting that drinking water safety has become rather complex. I'm sort of smiling because in Ottawa, our logo for drinking water is water, pure and simple. Well, looking back over 30 years, it's mostly pure, but definitely not simple. And there's challenges with microbial pathogens, which are largely invisible to the tools that we use. We can detect so many trace substances these days analytically, and the public sort of demands zero risk. So it's quite a challenge. Even the question about what is safe drinking water is a challenging question. However, I feel that through the application, in our experience, of a good safety plan, quality management principles, good process control, and good regulatory oversight, we can achieve confidence that the water we're supplying is safe for consumers. In Ontario, things fundamentally changed in about 20 years ago in the aftermath of Walkerton. This was a serious waterborne outbreak involving Campylobacter and E. coli 0157. And a judicial inquiry was held. Justice O'Connor produced 2 reports that concluded that the tragedy was preventable and came up with 93 recommendations to improve the safety of drinking water in Ontario. This picture shows, in fact, that they built a center of excellence in Walkerton, kind of a positive change. This is for research and for operator training in the aftermath of that tragedy. So the Ministry of Environment in Ontario, to their credit, really took those recommendations seriously and built a fairly comprehensive, you might say the most comprehensive framework in Canada under the Safe Drinking Water Act, a whole series of regulations, mandatory quality management system in every water system, regardless of size. There's about 600 water systems in Ontario. Annual reporting to the public, to municipal council every year, licenses. We still have very comprehensive inspections. Every facility has to be inspected annually. It takes about 2 days to do that, and they issue a report and they issue a rating on the facility. So anyway, a comprehensive network. And I guess the question is, does that lead us into safe drinking water across the province, which we'll explore that. I want to talk a little bit about the quality management system itself. There are 21 elements in Ontario's version, essentially a safety plan. In my opinion, the heart of it really comes down to the annual risk assessment, the identification of critical control points, critical control limits. This is the HACCP concept. As well as a monthly review of near misses, incidents, trying to find preventive actions that will reduce risk, as well as a comprehensive management review each year and reports that go to management and go to the municipal council as well. So when you think about these limits, like critical control limits, certainly in Ottawa, we have a number of different limits that we use. The operational limits help the operators to keep the process within an optimal treatment zone. And at the same time, there are regulatory limits that we must obey. And there are about 12 criteria for what's called adverse water quality incidents. And in this case, it's immediately reportable to public health. There's responses have to be taken, paperwork, and so on. So each of those must be adhered to. I think probably the most important limits we have are the critical control limits. And for us, these represent the boundary when we're just starting to get into an area where the water might be unsafe or potentially unsafe. So that's kind of the threshold. In Ottawa, we've also developed 24 criteria that we call our public health criteria. And if any one of those criteria are exceeded, we immediately consult with public health, and there's a good chance we're headed into an advisory at that point. Just one comment on the regulatory limits. And in our experience, they don't really represent unsafe water. It's been very rare that they would, and yet they have a whole bunch of paperwork and effort that's involved. On the other hand, the critical control limits, which we feel are the boundaries of safety, are almost always not reportable. They're below the radar of the drinking water framework. So there seems to be an interesting disconnect between water safety and regulatory limits. This graph shows our critical control limit deviations over the years. You can see back in the early days, we would have 30 or 40 deviations per year. And over the years, through preventive measures, we've been able to reduce that down. In 2020, we had 5 deviations. The important thing is that the operator catches these, responds, either diverts the water or purges the plant so that the unsafe water never gets into the system. We also have a debate, should we be aiming for 0? And not sure. I think seeing a few of those events tells us that the system's working. We're tracking things. It's sensitive. So it's one of our little debates. So a treatment process like we have in Ottawa really lends itself to using the HACCP concept. We have instruments, we have operating measurements, and so on. But the challenge is that, mostly what we're trying to control are invisible pathogens. We never really measure them directly. We control the process. We measure things like turbidity, chlorine residual, and we infer that the water is therefore safe using engineering concepts. However, I think you would agree that source water, there's variability there and its characteristics. Pathogens may be present, maybe not present. What concentration are they? They're kind of transient. Even the process, of course, is variable from hour to hour, day to day, and certainly from plant to plant. There are wide variations in performance. And so for the operators, what is the relationship between what they measure in the process and actual risk in terms of safe water? And of course, process upsets do occur in all shapes and sizes, various durations, various magnitudes. And so the real question is, given those uncertainties, what are the thresholds that constitute safe or unsafe water? If we lose chlorine for 15 minutes, is that unsafe? What if the filter turbidity for 4 hours increases up to 0.2 NTU? Is that a risk? Those are really challenging questions. And the way that we've dealt with them in Ottawa is through a comprehensive research program over the last 25 years. So fortunately, we built the pilot plant you see in the background. We've partnered with a number of universities, and we've looked at every aspect of our water quality and of our treatment process over the years. Again, trying to relate what the operators see to actual risk, primarily in pathogen risk. Interesting, reflecting back, is that we've found a lot of surprises over the years, and things that we felt would be fine turned out to be a really significant risk to water safety, and vice versa. Things that we thought for sure were going to be problematic turned out to be just fine. So that's kind of reassuring in some ways, that we don't know how things are exactly, maybe a little scary too. So that's been our experience. So I'd be happy to talk about some of those surprises if there's time. One example is that the pathogen challenge work, pathogen log removal, the inactivation, tracer studies under all operating conditions for virus, bacteria, protozoa. We've really done a lot of work in this area, full scale and at pilot scale. And we've poured all that understanding and thinking into a QMRA risk model that we've built that's really customized for our treatment plants. And it looks at the annual risk of infection and DALI risk for 5 index pathogens built on the Health Canada model. We've also produced a customized version that looks at transient events, short duration events, such as losing chlorine for an hour or high turbidity for a day, that kind of thing. So I'll just show you a few graphs that might be of interest to show you how we might use the model. This shows the annual risk of infection or illness for those 5 organisms. This is a log scale going from low risk at the left to higher risk. The dotted line is the 1 in 10,000 sort of risk target for waterborne illness. And if we were to not treat the water and people just drank raw water, you can see we would have a problematic condition. All organisms, reference pathogens, would be well above the risk target. If we just had filtration, you can see that protozoa are okay, but it's unacceptable for bacteria and viruses in our treatment plants. If we just had chlorine disinfection as a barrier, you can see now that protozoa are problematic, even though we've looked after some of the other organisms. However, when we have all barriers that are operating well, we meet the safe targets with about 3 to 4 log margin of safety. And this is a theoretical number, but that's a very low estimated number of illnesses per year, given that our population is about 1 million that we serve. Here's an interesting one. What if we had our barriers operating, but our filter turbidities increased up to, say, 0.2 NTU, which isn't very much? And you can see that we're now just at a threshold peeking into the unsafe territory. And so this has become one of our critical control limits in our treatment plants. If we were to add UV to our treatment, you can see we would buy ourselves quite an additional margin of safety in terms of microbial risk. And this is a final one that's interesting. If we just met the Ontario regulations, 2 log crypto, 3 log giardia, 4 log virus, we would not be meeting those risk targets. So just meeting regulations does not confirm that you have safe water in Ontario. And just as a rough estimate, that's about 1,100 cases of illness per year in the city. So looking back over the years, there are about 35 what I would say critical risk management tools and actions that we've taken in Ottawa that have built our confidence in the safety of our water supply. And so how are we doing? Well, this shows that in most cases we've completed those actions, but there's still a handful that we either haven't started or are still in process. The interesting thing to me is that most of these things are not part of Ontario's framework. In fact, if I look at the Ontario regulations, the quality management, the inspections, there's only a handful of those actions that are covered. And so the question is, are other utilities doing these things? In my experience, no, they're not. And yet we feel these are so important to build confidence in the safety of our water supply. And there's other systems with excellent operators. They're very well trained, but I just don't think they're really aware of some of these risks. And maybe there's a false sense of security that if I follow the regulations, everything's safe. So in summary, I think drinking water is complex. I think you would agree. And I do commend Ontario for producing such a comprehensive framework in the aftermath of Walkerton. But in our experience, there are still some significant gaps to water safety in Ontario. And in fact, I think the biggest one is the need for really good critical thinking, challenging what we know about our risks and our systems using good engineering principles and giving those tools to the operators so they can do their job. And with that, I'll say thank you very much for your attention and for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers. I apologize. I wish we had booked an hour and 45 minutes for this. I'm mindful that people may have to leave us now, but I would also like to encourage you to stay, if possible, to try to get at least a little bit of a discussion with the presenters. If presenters could turn on your cameras, please. I was monitoring the chat. Thank you very much again. Excellent presentations. I was monitoring the chat. Didn't see anything come up specifically to address at this time. I do have a few brief questions for you, and it's again another tall order to answer a very complicated question briefly. Corrina, if you could unmute yourself. a lot of water utilities operate in a unionized environment, and a lot of people might roll their eyes when I say this, but when you start talking about quality management in those kinds of environment, the first thing that comes to mind in some people is a red flag for they're going to ask me to do more work, but I'm not going to get paid more. Have you specifically addressed that kind of a challenge in your research?
I think it was sort of during my research and the companies that I worked with, I think there was this kind of thought that water safety plans were going to be, a lot more work. I don't think they really understood the sort of building blocks that they already did, which sort of constituted the water safety plan approach. And implementing the water safety plans was almost sort of consolidating all that into that kind of holistic approach. So I think that was one thing to note, sort of communicate that to people working in the organizations. Yeah, that was kind of the main thing that kind of struck out for me. And then also sort of the added value benefits of water safety plans. So obviously the main driver was protection of public health, but there's also sort of process efficiencies and that can be implemented by implementing that kind of approach. So I think it's sort of it's that communication bit really in the first instance, and trying to get that kind of buy-in, that maybe it's like I said, there are those added value benefits as well as public health.
So communication and probably even training, I think, at a
stage.
Yeah. Thank you, Corrina. Maria, if you could unmute yourself. Fascinating journey. It's still continuing. There seems to be a lot of collaboration between Nordic countries. You mentioned the mini HACCP, the sort of the reduced, slimmed down quality management system for smaller systems. Can you briefly identify what are the things that are left out there? How do you actually reduce that plan for smaller systems?
We worked on it like that. We were four small suppliers that all wanted to implement the water safety plan, but had hesitated because of this being a big work with a lot of paper. So we worked together, and I think most of the things are in there, but they are maybe slimmed down kind of. We have risk assessment. You have to know your system. You have to have who is responsible, who to call. You have to have risk assessment and what you're going to, your control measure, what are you going to do, and things like that in this. So it's simpler, but some maybe more not so much paper, but still including. But what it needs to be done now, it needs to be computerized, put out, so you can go with your tablet out and fill it in when you're doing it. And maybe adding aspects like climate change, because we are already having that avalanches in water intakes and things like that. And I think that and sanitary inspection. We've been working on sanitary inspection for small supplies. There's been a project ongoing which could be included in this. So I think you're never finished. You have to keep on improving.
Thank you very much. There's suddenly an avalanche of questions now coming in from the side. Very good questions. We may not have time to address them all right now, but a question from Steve Craig in Edmonton for all of you. Is there an opportunity for education of water safety plans and risk-based approaches at the university or technical college level? What are your thoughts?
Are you talking to me?
Everybody, so you can.
Yes.
Eva, I don't know if Eva is with us still. I don't see her camera on. There you go. I'm going to probably let Eva answer this first, if you don't mind. Do you see the opportunity to include the subject of our symposium in education at the university and college level?
I see a great opportunity, not in a regular program, but because it's really difficult to change the curriculum of universities and have public and private universities and colleges adopt a program and ABET approve the structure of the program. So that would take a while, but universities are striving and really hungry for seminars, webinars, presenters who come and talk to students. And those are very highly attended. Those result in relationships between the students and the agency that the presenters represent and possible future employment. So those are really good opportunities for interaction and just presenting an idea and then discussion with students during the seminars, especially graduate seminars where students are thinking more seriously about what they want to engage in and they start looking for more specific venue of their interest. So I see a really, really great opportunity in whether it's in person, whether it's virtual, but using those seminars as a platform for presenting this concept and teaching them.
Thank you. There's been some excellent questions about pathogen log removal, QMRA. I want to ask a question to Ian Douglas, if you could unmute yourself, Ian. As you were talking about the city of Ottawa's journey and the discoveries that were made, I wondered if you were thinking about the Utah Water Quality Alliance and the sharing of knowledge that has taken place there. It sounds like Ontario, that's one thing that the current framework doesn't have is, it appears, this kind of sharing across utilities.
Yeah, I thought that was a great strength of the Utah framework. And I know you're right, in Ontario, there's no formal structure to do that. But I would also say that informally, utilities talk to utilities, I'd say every week and share things. I know plants near us, we've gone to help them, they've helped us, especially ones that are on the same source water as we are. So I think it does happen informally, but I like the idea of having a formal a forum to share that. That doesn't seem to be set up, and I think it was one of the recommendations from the Walkerton inquiry report was that there be kind of a regional hub concept built so that those larger systems could assist smaller systems and so on. So I like the idea.
You already have a water quality center of excellence in Walkerton, so there's the parts are there, right?
Yeah, potentially.
Thank you. Maybe
May I add?
Go ahead. Yes, please, Maria.
I think it is very important. This could be very important for the small supplies, especially. Yeah. The big supplies, they are kind of word of their own. But the small ones, they need the support, the fellowship, very, very badly.
Right. I'm again, please. There's a couple of questions that are addressed to individuals in the chat. If you could address those. I want to ask one last question to Robert Cheng. If you could unmute yourself, Robert, or Tom Schippert. 27 years now with the Partnership for Safe Water. You have plans for the next quarter century. What's top of the list for how the partnership is going to proceed? Either of you can address that if you like.
You know what, Laith, I'll let Tom talk since I've already talked enough virtually. So
I guess, Tom, you need to, there you go, unmute yourself.
Thanks, Robert. Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Schippert. There's quite a bit we're doing, and we're finding that there's a lot of resources that folks want to be able to have us work through the utilities that we integrate with. So like our slide said, source water is a big one that's been asked about within our community to work on source water protection type of activities. Also, wastewater, the Partnership for Clean Water program has been in place since 2016. That has been we continue to work on that, and we continue to have inroads in the wastewater side of things. And we're looking at reuse in other worlds around reclamation and stuff for that program. And then, of course, the treatment and the distribution programs continue to have new subscribers. And on the distribution side, they continue to really want to look at disinfection and how we can continue to assess and help folks understand their chloranimations and how that integrates into the distribution line. So we're getting a lot of that type of request, just a lot about operations. And then, of course, you know, we participate in a lot of sessions like this. So do look for partnership sessions throughout the year at various conferences. We'll be presenting at section conferences for AWA throughout the year. But those are kind of the ideas and areas we're focusing on right now, Laith. And of course, anybody interested in learning more, please get in touch. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you pointed out, you mentioned something that I'd like to mention it for those who are still with us. Part of the inspiration for the subcommittee and this symposium was taking a look at what has been done outside of North America, as well as what's been done in North America. But there's a lot that's happened outside of North America, specifically the water safety plan approach. And for some reason, outside of Ontario and a few other notable exceptions, this has kind of gone, is still off the radar. But one place where it has been completely embraced is in places like the California potable reuse regulations. They've completely embraced the sort of water safety plan approach, and yet in the regular drinking water, quote unquote, it's nowhere to be seen. It's never discussed. You never hear about the bond charter and so on. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for the regular drinking water field to learn in North America, to learn what's happened outside of it. And vice versa. So, and I'm hoping that this is the thin end of the wedge for stuff like that to happen. Again, I apologize for exceeding the allotted time, and thank you for all of those who stayed with us. The recording will be posted online, and I encourage everyone to stay in touch and contact presenters with additional questions. Thank you very much, all of you, for the contributions. Have a good day. Happy World Water Day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.